guys, it's Christy, and today I'm going to be bringing you 3 writing tips inspired by our current season, fall. So my first tip has to do with transitions because fall is a transitional season as the temperatures are now cooling down to lead into the winter. So one thing I think that's important to do is look at your writing and see if you have any transitional scenes that are too long or maybe not even needed, and see if you have them in there because you think that you need them to get from one important scene to another important scene. I encourage you to look at it and see, is there a real purpose to this scene? Is there a reason why it needs to be here? Because a lot of the time you can just hop, well, I don't want to say hop, but you can just jump straight into another scene without having to transition into it. So in my first project, my first novel that I wrote, I made the mistake of way too many transitional scenes, and it wasn't an artistic choice or anything like that. Literally, I would have scenes where she was like walking from one place to another, and I was just, in my mind, I was thinking, well, that's how she's gonna get there. It's like she's gonna walk, or like she's gonna take the subway, or whatever it is. And I had a lot of traveling scenes, and they really, unless there's a purpose, that's the thing, is you really have to look and see if this scene has some sort of purpose. Maybe on her journey to work, something happens, you know, she meets someone, or maybe she gets robbed, or maybe, you know, a terrorist attack happens on the subway, you know, something like that. Like, if there's a point for it, and it doesn't just have to be traveling from A to B, it could be, you know, conversations. Like, let's say, you know, you want to set up these two characters for an argument, and you know, you're like, well, they have to have some sort of conversation before that, and so you just throw together a scene as sort of a transitional scene on your way to your ultimate goal. But if that scene doesn't serve a purpose, and if it doesn't drive the plot forward, and if it's not interesting to the reader, then it's time to reconsider. And maybe it could be a lot shorter. Maybe that's the answer, is you could condense it, or maybe you can work that transition into another scene that does serve more of a purpose and is more instrumental in the plot. So that would be my first piece of advice, is to look at those transition scenes and kind of fine-tune those and see if they're needed. So my third piece of advice has to do with reinvention. Fall to me feels like such a great time for reinvention. Not just the fact that the trees are changing and the whole atmosphere is changing, the ambiance, but also I feel like, especially girls, it's a time where we can be, you know, a little bit different for a while and reinvent ourselves, you know, pick out new clothes that make us feel good. So for this tip, I would encourage you to ask yourself if you settled into any patterns with your characters. Do all of your characters seem like they're beginning to sound the same? Maybe you're using the same archetypes for all of your characters. Or maybe you just have a couple in there that are very similar, and you know, ultimately we want characters that breathe, characters that come alive, and characters that are true to life. You know, there's so much diversity out there, and so the last thing that you want, I mean, unless it's part of your plot or something and you have like a colony of aliens and they're all like clones or something like that, you know, it's situational. But you know, generally we don't want a novel with all the same characters. It's going to be boring to the reader. And also, it's not going to create much conflict, you know, because that's one of the ways that we can create conflict, is by people having different agendas and things. So if everyone's the same, you're not going to have, you know, much flavor in your novel. So think about ways, or analyze your characters and see if any of them seem too similar. Do they all come from different backgrounds? Are they all the same ethnicity? So ask yourself if maybe you can reinvent some of these characters. So my third piece of advice has to do with colors. Since there is so much color in the fall, everyone's wearing different colors, the leaves are changing colors, it's just so inspiring. So I wanted to talk about color specifically in your novel. Have you added enough color to your descriptions and to your world that you're building? Even if you're not writing fantasy and you didn't have to do any world building, like me, I'm a contemporary writer, you can still ask yourself if you're basing your scenes in the most interesting location possible. Like, for example, you know, you're having that conversation, two characters are conversing. Are they conversing in the most interesting location? You know, are they just sitting around the kitchen table? Could they maybe be somewhere else? Could they be, I don't know, at an amusement park? Or, you know, could they be on a boat on the Seine River? Or, you know, they could be anywhere in the world. So why would you have them sitting at the kitchen table? Unless, you know, that's pivotal in the plot and that's pivotal in your story. It's something to think about, you know, because that can really add a new layer to the story, that can add a new layer to the scene. Maybe it can create some conflict for your scene depending on where they are, and maybe there's, you know, external stuff that kind of like conflicts with them resolving their conversation and them resolving their issue or whatever it is. So I would encourage you to ask yourself if changing the location of a scene could help improve it. And also, you know, your descriptions, are you creating vivid colors in the reader's mind in all of your descriptions for your scenes? Are you creating that world that the reader is just going to get lost in? So those are my 3 writing tips inspired by fall. Be sure to check out some of my previous writing tips down below in the description box. I'll link them for you in case you're in the mood for that sort of content. And I'll see you all next time. Bye.